Well, hi there. Hello, and welcome back to the PitchGrid. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to another episode. We are a podcast that gives news, opinions, insight, and analysis on the NFL, or American football, and the EFL Championship, which is the second tier of English football. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get right on into it. Let's head gridside as we talk about the NFL. The Ravens have released Justin Tucker, the most accurate kicker in NFL history. Very well decorated. His achievements are quite well known. Probably one of the flashiest kickers probably in recent memory. He's just done so much. But then, of course, we had all the allegations come out about him early this year that were just incredibly damning. And if, again, this is allegedly, if they are true, then this move makes a lot of sense because now they have released him. They drafted Tyler Loop out of Arizona to replace him, it looks like. The team did come out last week and were saying it would be like a football decision. That's how Harbaugh put it. That's how the Ravens organization has put it. Their statement goes like this: sometimes football decisions are incredibly difficult, and this is one of those instances. Considering our current roster, we have made the tough decision to release Justin Tucker. Justin created many significant and unforgettable moments in Ravens history. His reliability, focus, drive, resilience, and extraordinary talent made him one of the league's best kickers for over a decade. We are grateful for Justin's many contributions while playing for the Ravens. We sincerely wish him and his family the very best in this next chapter of their lives. Honestly, this feels like a very PR type statement. Really, if the allegations hadn't come up, there would be no question he would still be on the team, in my opinion. I think this is trying to get the whole situation out of the locker room right before the next season starts. And you kind of saw this coming, like I said, Tyler Luke being drafted and how the league was playing it and how the Ravens had stayed pretty quiet over the last few months about it, how KG Harbaugh has been over the whole process as well. And you have to feel bad for Tucker's family as well, because this not only impacts him, it impacts his wife and his kid. Who knows what's going on there, familially speaking. Not only that, just how much it's just affected everything for them, and financially, I'm sure they're probably set for life, but it still is incredibly damaging for a family that seemed idyllic not long ago. Ravens designated him as a post June 1st cut, which means that saves them $4.2 million. So decent cap space there for the Ravens to be flexible with, I guess, but still very heavy situation and very disappointing considering what Tucker was considered and viewed as only a year ago. The draft is headed to DC in 2027, the NFL announced, and apparently it's going to be held at the National Mall there in DC. NFL is projecting record turnout for this event. They are saying over 1 million plus fans are going to be at the draft in 2027. I mean, I don't know how they're projecting this. To me, that feels like a bold move to project that. I mean, it's good for the DC area considering how, of course, the Commanders also just announced they are going to be building a state-of-the-art dome stadium there in DC. So they're leaving Landover, Maryland, where the team has been since the Dan Snyder era began. I mean, it's good for the Commanders to give them some publicity, to give them the opportunity to host a draft, and it feels very much like a clean slate for the franchise after getting Dan Snyder out of the way. Josh Harris is now here, and he's made a lot of positive moves. Of course, the team is in a positive direction after their run to the NFC Championship game last year. So a lot of positive things happening for the Commanders, and you'd love to see it, especially after how atrocious they had been for so long under Dan Snyder's ownership. And now we just have to wait and see if that success continues or does it all of a sudden crumble. We hope not. I mean, this is a very storied franchise in league history. They've won multiple championships. They've got legendary players like John Riggins and Sean Taylor and Joe Theismann. And now they're not known for much, but they're starting to be on the rise again. this is another part of it where the draft is headed there now. And you got to be really happy for Commanders fans feeling like they're actually starting to be somewhat in the center of attention for once. So then we had Julian Edelman also being named to the Patriots Hall of Fame. Edelman is a very integral part of that second part of their dynasty. He was so good with Tom Brady. Always seemed to be right where Tom and him. Always an accurate route runner. Knew where to be. Had good hands. Was a good punt returner too when he was at that position for a while. If you remember that. Very solid cornerstone of that franchise for that run they had in the late 2010s. And well deserved for him. Great player for the Patriots in the modern era. You're probably going to see more and more of this kind of stuff now that of most of the Patriots of old are retired. Ronnie Harrison might start to be one of those. Probably Willie McGinnis and a few others of the cornerstones like Lawyer Malloy, Ty Law, maybe Asante Samuel. There's so many good options you could have. In the modern era, you could have James White, of course Brady. It's going to be there one day, obviously. It's going to take a while before the Patriots retire all of those players in that Hall of Fame, but they'll all be there for sure. And Edelman's the first one to really be put up there in the Raptors with the rest of Patriot greats. So congratulations to him, to his family. Well-deserved honor for the wide receiver from Kent State. I mean, think about it. The guy went from a small school, was a quarterback there, transitioned to receiver really well, and a very Wes Welker type of receiver as well. You just gotta love it. Small school kid that just takes off. Very inspirational type story as well. Can't wait to see that when it happens this year. Also, in other news, Matthew Stafford agreed to a new contract over the weekend. He will earn $44 million this year, with $40 million of it guaranteed. The other $4 million is already paid. So he's going to be getting a hefty contract. It looks like they're trying to get one more run with Stafford there in LA, trying to see if he can do well with Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. Rams have made significant moves on the defense as well to make sure they're young, that they have a good core there as well, with the likes of Jared Verse breaking out last year. And this looks like a solid Rams team overall. It is kind of aging on the offensive side, but overall, you like the upside the Rams can provide. Are they Super Bowl contenders? I don't know about that. They would probably be the defense to really step up this year. But overall, it feels like a very solid team that pushed the Eagles to the very limit last postseason. And who knows? Maybe they do it again. Maybe this upgrade with Devontae Adams, particularly, was that one, will push them over the top. But I kind of doubt it. If Adams goes back to his Packers years, or his Raiders years even, and does well, then that is a very dangerous receiver core, not going to lie. The question is if he gets back to that form. And he's old. He's not as spry as he used to be, which his athleticism was one of his better traits when he was a great receiver. Of course, he's really tall, has arm span as well. I mean, it's possible. I just want to see how it works this year because with the Jets, it felt like he had flashes of it, but he wasn't the same receiver. That could absolutely be the atmosphere there in the Jets locker room, and who knows what other stuff was going on there in New York. But I want to see it before I actually believe the Rams can actually make a huge push in the playoffs. But they're definitely going to be playoff contenders. I think they'll be right up there with the Niners in contention for the division. And maybe the Cardinals or Seahawks are pushing them as well. We'll have to see on that part, but I think the Rams are definitely up there in terms of contending for the division, probably making the playoffs in some capacity. So it's good they locked down the quarterback for another year, probably waiting for next year to really draft the quarterback of the future for Sean McVay, which is going to be very fascinating when it comes to that. Something I want to start doing in the show going forward. It's called State of the Team. And the first team we're going to start with is the Jaguars. So last year, the Jaguars, they didn't do so well. They were the fifth overall pick in this year's draft. And in a lot of ways, Trevor Lawrence wasn't great. He had the injury, of course, that really, I think, derailed them in a lot of ways. It was just ugly, and they had to part ways with their coach, Doug Peterson, in the middle of the year. They went 4-13, 3-5 at home, 1-8 away. They had allowed 435 points. It was just a miserable season. So coming into this year, they hired Liam Cohen in that mess of a situation from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after he had the good season with Baker Mayfield. And they hired him really to be a mentor for Trevor Lawrence, to really make sure that Lawrence is worth the contract that the Jaguars just gave him, one of the higher paid quarterbacks in the league now, and help him realize the potential that he had coming out of Clemson. And Cohen has been known for helping quarterbacks like Baker become better, and that's why the Jaguars, I think, really wanted him. That relationship is going to be pivotal for the Jaguars this year if they want to be any good. The unfortunate part is ownership is not very interested, it seems, in making the team better. They did hire a new manager, GM in Gladstone, and fired Trent Baalke, which I think is a huge move for them because Baalke was dragging that team through the mud with his choices of players. So it feels like they're trying to go in a new direction. But at the same time, lots of fans feel like that they are just interested. It feels like that they're trying to get them out the state of Florida, and the Jaguars are incredibly special to the Jacksonville area. They are a franchise that, while they are incredibly historic, they have had their moments. They have not been the same since the 2017 run when they made it to the AFC Championship game and lost in Foxborough to New England, where New England eventually lost in the Super Bowl to Philly. And of course, the Jaguars have had a couple of other AFC Championship games appearances in their franchise history, but those were in the 90s. So Jaguars are trying to return back to the glory of old. It just feels like they might be a year or two away from that. Of course, they're going to be in London once again this year. The schedule doesn't come out till middle of this year, so that's going to be interesting to see how that falls into place. I feel like the Jaguars, they didn't have the greatest of drafts. They kind of reached for some picks. They picked an extra running back, which to me feels weird. I get drafting a running back to maybe complement Travis Etienne, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like they needed three running backs like that. I mean, I get depth, I guess, but still, Travis Hunter was the home run of this draft, obviously. So the question is, will the team improve? I feel like they can. The thing is, I don't think it's going to be this year that they'll be okay. If Cohen is a good coach, I mean, obviously, some people are calling him a cringe for the Duval thing he said in his press conference, but we've seen cringier press conferences, and those guys still work out, like Nick Sirianni. I think if Cohen's going to do well, they need to make sure that his relationship with Trevor Lawrence is good and that the offense improves. I think they still have Christian Kirk around, which is good. They need that kind of receiver help there. The thing is, Trevor needs help. If he has that help in the supporting cast, they could do well. The defense needs to also get better. They were horrific. Like I said, over 400 points allowed. That's unacceptable. So drafting defense was good for them. Of course, this was a defensive laden draft. Now the question is, can they take a small step forward? Where is Travis Hunter going to play? That's the biggest question. My guess is he's going to play corner. I really think that he's probably best suited for that. Though I wouldn't be shocked also if the Jaguars maybe let him be flexible a bit, play a bit on both ends, but not 50-50 the whole game. Maybe let him play receiver on a few plays, see how he does, and maybe play him on corner more, because I feel like the defense needs more help than the offense right now. Obviously, the Jaguars have a lot of holes, but defense feels like it's the one that needs a lot of addressing. If you're the Jaguars, you want to address the biggest needs now. It's a very complicated and weird season the Jaguars are headed into. I don't know if they'll be contending this year. They want to get back to the year they had when they lost the divisional round to the Chiefs, when they injured Mahomes' ankle. The question is going to be if that O-line can also protect Trevor, because that's also a huge ask for them. They improved that in free agency. Now the question is, can they capitalize on it? If they can't, then ownership is fickle enough that they could fire Cohen, but hopefully they give Cohen some time and effort into building the team in his image. I feel like coaches do not get enough leeway for that lately. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Liam Cohen project year one works out. If you see some glimmers of success, I think that's all you can really ask for from the Jaguars this year. I do expect them to again be a top 10 pick maybe. but still, I think they could be slightly better than the 5th overall pick. But we'll have to see. And with all the grid side news out of the way, let's head to the EFL. Big news came out today. Tom Cleverley of Watford was sacked. It feels like a huge missed opportunity for the club. Cleverley, a former Watford player himself, came in, had them in the playoff positions early in the season, and then came to 2025, and the Hornets just fell apart. They only had 5 wins this entire calendar year to close out the season, and they fell all the way down into lower half of mid-table. The club had a very weak statement, basically thanking Cleverley for his service as a head coach and as a player, but they felt like it was time to move on, citing the 5 wins this year and that they didn't make the playoffs, thinking that it was time for them to make a change and that they had a very young and talented squad. Honestly, to me, that's very cowardly because Cleverley took a team that many, including me, pegged for relegation at the beginning of last season and made them playoff contenders for a large chunk of the season. However, when the talent of the club finally came to the top, it showed that they weren't all that. But Cleverly took them and dragged them to a place where they weren't supposed to be. And I think that shows the talent and the coaching ability that Cleverly has. I just don't think they were going to give him a chance. Now, Watford has now sacked their 12th manager in 6 years. It's kind of a crazy stat, a joke, really, that this club has not really settled down with a manager. Also, Cleverly is the second winningest manager in that time period. He just needed more time. And this Watford board just is trying to throw anything at the wall and hoping it sticks. But when it doesn't right away, they sack the manager. To be honest, that's cowardly. That's not good team building. And no wonder this club has no ambition every single year. And I do not blame Watford fans a single bit for being frustrated, for being mad that they sacked Cleverly, that a manager that the fans have really gotten behind and really loved, especially because he was a former player, but also because he just made them better. He made them more watchable. The attack was fun. I mean, it wasn't always great, especially the last half of the year, but it was better. It looked alive. And the first half of the year, they were dangerous. Like, if you had asked me around November, I would have said they would have finished in the playoffs. They were good. He had some energy in them, and now all of a sudden, all that momentum is gone, and they have to restart. And the new manager is going to have to make his own project, bring in his own players. And honestly, I would not be shocked if Watford is again fighting relegation or close to it, because I do not trust the board to find a competent manager. I feel like they got very lucky with Cleverly, and they threw that lucky opportunity away, and now they will rue that chance come the end of next season. Now, the other huge piece of news is, of course, we have our promoted teams from League One, and we have our relegated teams from the Prem confirmed. We have Birmingham City and Wrexham as the promoted teams from League One, and we have Southampton, Leicester, and Ipswich coming down from the Premier League. Well, a lot of talk has been made about the likes of Wrexham, especially here in the States, where, of course, the Welcome to Wrexham documentary is huge, has gained the Red Dragons a lot of media attention and acclaim, especially because Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. And I want to shout out the Unplanned Approach podcast for bringing this topic up and asking what we think the owner's vision and what they term as success is in that club. Well, to be honest, the vision for Wrexham, according to Ryan and Rob, I think has been very multifaceted, multi-approached. They seem to want to have not only on the field success, but also off field, making sure Wrexham is a well-known brand that is at the forefront of not only English soccer, but also around the world. And they want to make sure the marketing is on point. Last year, they had Wrexham come out and play a couple of preseason games in the States. And now that's part of giving that exposure to the Welsh club that has not really had a lot of attention over the years, has had a few good seasons, but until this last string of promotions, they really hadn't done much. And now they're all the way up in the second tier. They went from the National League, which is the 5th tier of English football, up to the championship. And that's impressive. You cannot take that away from the Red Dragons. And also, The on-field success is, of course, they want to get to the Premier League. That is the obvious goal for every English club. You want to get to the Premier League. You want that financial security for your club. Because once you get to the Prem, you get all sorts of TV rights, you get all sorts of financial backing that the Prem has to offer because it's one of the biggest leagues in the world and is one of the biggest leagues in the States. You get so much brand deals and everything that comes with that. So I would say that's the kind of vision that the owners have for the club, is making sure they can bring the club as much success on the field and off the field. Not only that, bring the city of Wrexham some joy, some identity to it, because that's something that's also been lacking. They're a historic club, especially in Wales, but now it feels like they are becoming a bigger brand than just themselves, than just in Wales. They're becoming an international thing because of the people who own it. And success for them, I think, is going to be when they get to the Prem and they are contending. Because I don't think Rob and Ryan are going to stop until they are contending in the Premier League and making deep FA Cup and Carabao Cup runs. Maybe getting to the Champions League one day, which is crazy to think about. Wrexham in the Champions League, that would be insane. That's in football manager style rise. Of course, this is not going to be easy. This is the first time in the championship for Wrexham since the 80s, I think it is, at least. The other part of this is setting a blueprint, I think, for other stars to get this type of success going at other clubs like Wrexham. And I think you have to look no farther than Wrexham's partner in promotion, Birmingham City. I mean, look who just invested in them just last year. Tom Brady. He invested a huge chunk in Birmingham City. A lot of American ownership was pumped into the club, and they were the biggest spenders in League One last year. I mean, not in wage, because Huddersfield Town had the highest wage bill in the entire League One. Now they are right there in the championship, and they are going to probably spend big again. I mean, Birmingham City's ownership has made it very clear they are going to spend and make sure they are going to contend. Maybe not this year, they might not be right up at the top, but they will be there and they will make their presence felt in the championship. I mean, that's big talk, but I mean, considering how they acted in the transfer window last year, Birmingham City has made some intentional moves that really made them a powerhouse in League One, and no one could stop them. And I mean, with that kind of ownership and the wise spending they're doing, it's very similar to what Wrexham did coming up for the National League. Make wise financial moves for players like Paul Mullen, a couple of other players, and the club will get better because they have a good coach. And Chris Davies is the same way for Birmingham City as Phil Parkinson is for Wrexham. I feel like those two are going to be forever and irrevocably linked together because of this. And they might get a lot of heat for it. Birmingham seems to be getting a lot more of it than Wrexham. I don't know why. They're very similar, in my opinion. Another club to keep an eye on also that has this blueprint, I think, might be Swansea City, with Luka Modric investing in the club now. Obviously, this isn't going to be the same for a while, probably until Modric retires, but I feel like more and more of these investments are getting made. You saw, of course, Will Ferrell investing in Leeds United. They're going up to the Premier League this year. Sheffield United has a lot of investment. Burnley with J.J. Watt had a lot of investment from him and other similar investors who are big stars and big names. They're going up to the Premier League as well. So there's a lot of interest coming into the championship. And this is absolutely setting a precedent, I think, for foreign owners coming into these clubs and helping make these clubs a success, helping to make sure that they not only see it as an investment opportunity that could help them personally and financially, but also maybe even help a community become irrevocably linked to a golden age for their club that they haven't seen, if ever, or in a long time. It's very exciting to see this kind of stuff coming up in the championship in League One with so much interest and investment going on. It's fascinating. And you have like Burton Albion, who got relegated. Patrick Mahomes has a share in Burton Albion. They got relegated to League Two this year, but still, a lot of clubs are getting investment. So it's incredible to see, and I'm very excited to see how this goes in the future. And now let's get into the juicy talk, because this week it's playoff football in the championship. And honestly, kind of excited to see who's going to be the third promoted team out of the championship this year and going to the Premier League. We have our matchups. Sheffield United taking on Bristol City because Coventry City happened to win and Bristol City could not manage to beat Preston North End on the final day. And then Coventry taking on Sunderland. Fascinating matchups on both sides. Let's start with the 3 versus 6 matchup in Sheffield United versus Bristol City. First leg is going to be held at Ashton Gate. If you don't know or you're brand new to the championship, the playoff system works like this. It is a 2-legged or 2-game system where it will be based on aggregate scoring. So the total score of both games is added together, and whoever has the highest aggregate score wins. If the score is tied after the second game is played, they will go to extra time, which is 2 15-minute periods. And if it's still tied after that, penalties or penalty shootout will be taken to see who moves on to Wembley Stadium to play in what is dubbed the richest game in football. Because, of course, the winner of that game gets promoted to the Premier League. And like we just talked about, a lot of financial benefits for the club come into play when they win that game. So let's start at Ashton Gate because this is a Bristol City team that has been very consistent for most of 2025, was on a great run, looked unstoppable for most of the year, and then lately has kind of faltered, has not looked their best. They have lost to the likes of Luton Town. They drew with Preston North End, who was relegation threatened this weekend, and now they're coming into a tie against a Sheffield United side that, while they had a 3-game losing streak, they've all of a sudden found their stride again. Even though they lost to Burnley, they seem to have found their little stride again after they tied Blackburn, but still, to get it against a team fighting for playoffs, that's pretty impressive. Sheffield United just have so much talent on their team. They have the likes of Gustavo Hammer, this year's player of the season. They have Tyrese Campbell, who they signed from Stoke, a very prolific striker when he's in form. Callum O'Hare is on that team. Harry Suter in the back. And you have, of course, team of the season candidate in Harrison Burrows. That just goes to show you how loaded the Sheffield United squad is with all the talent. And then, yes, Bristol City have been pretty good at Ashton Gate, almost impenetrable for the most part. However, you've got to think that Sheffield United are going to have the edge in this because it's a 2-leg tie. If Sheffield United can somehow either get a draw or really suffocate Bristol City, then they have an absolute chance of pulling this out at a winner-meets-all game at Bramall Lane. Because Bristol City, when they're not at home, are not nearly as good. And we saw that against the likes of Luton Town as well. The only thing I will say is Bristol City are so scrappy, and they played Sheffield United very well this season. They had the tie earlier this year where they snatched a point from Sheffield United at Ashton Gate. And then Sheffield United only won at Bramall Lane earlier in the season because of a late last-minute goal that broke Bristol City hearts. So it's not like these teams are not evenly matched. I feel like Bristol City plays very well into the hands of Sheffield United and vice versa. I just think Sheffield United just have so much talent, and over 2-leg tie in a few days with the form that Bristol City are in, I do think that Sheffield United will pull this out. I just feel like that they're really gunning and pushing for that third spot, and I don't think they're going to be stopped this time, even though Bristol City have made a valiant effort this year of breaking the mid-table championship allegations that they have had for so long as a club, where they had finished higher than 8th coming into this year for a long time, and this year they finished in 6th. So kudos to Bristol City. I just don't know if they're going to be able to push that glass ceiling open this year. And then we get to Sunderland at Coventry City. This is going to be a fun tie. This one's going to be on Friday. The Sheffield United Bristol City game is going to be on Thursday. If you are in the States and have Paramount Plus or watch CBS, do it. This is going to be a good game on both ends, I think. Sunderland come into this in 4th place. They had a very good year. They lose the final day to Oxford United, which was kind of stunning. They've been kind of inconsistent coming down the stretch this year. Coventry City also haven't had the best form as of late, losing to Plymouth and Luton Town. They did beat Middlesbrough, however, on the final day to clinch the playoffs, and now are headed into this with a great attack in Haji Wright, Ellis Sims. It's going to be at the CBS Arena. a sold out Coventry City. That is going to be a great environment for sure. Sunderland always travel well, so it's going to be, I think, a buzzing atmosphere. It's must-see TV. I think these are evenly matched teams, and I feel it could go either way. Coventry City beat Sunderland earlier this year 3-0, and then they had a tie early in the season. So Coventry have bested the Black Cats in terms of points. However, this feels like a Sunderland team that's been more consistent as of late. Yeah, Coventry, again, beat Middlesbrough to get into the playoffs, but Borough were kind of fading already and felt like the season was over for them already. The question is, who is going to have the better defense? Both teams have great attacks. For Sunderland, you have Mundell, you have a solid midfield, and you have Enzo Lafie and Wilson Isidore at the attack. You have Shurkin, 09, and a great cast of young talent at Sunderland. They have been a bit more solid at the back than Coventry. However, they feel lately like they haven't been as solid as they were to start the year and as impenetrable, especially at the Stadium of Light. The Stadium of Light, they're a lot better, but on the road, not so much. Meanwhile, Coventry have been very good at home. They are much more attacking when they're at home. However, they have had losses to the likes of Derby County at home. The thing with Coventry is they tend to give up bizarre goals. They do not have the best keeper in Collins. It feels very delicately poised. I feel like if Sunderland can snatch a win at Coventry, then they'll be able to pull this off. I do feel like Sunderland have a chance if they can pull out a win, maybe even a 2-goal win at Coventry. I feel like that would be a huge mountain to climb for Coventry on the road, particularly where Coventry do not play as well. They have a great attack, and they could absolutely wipe that away. And I think the win earlier this year was at Sunderland, so they have the ability to do it. The question is, can Regis Labrie, who was in contention for manager of the season, can he find a way to neutralize Haji Wright? If you can do that and neutralize Jack Rodoni, then you have a great chance of stopping Coventry City. Because Rodoni and Haji Wright have been their two main scorers as of late. And not a lot of other scoring has really come from other places. So maybe that's the key. Maybe neutralize Wright and Rodoni for Coventry, and Sunderland probably win. However, you could also say the same for Coventry against Sunderland. If they could neutralize Isidore and Lafie, then they really don't have a lot of creative talent in that squad. This feels like the blockbuster match of the two playoff games. I don't know. It's going to be so delicately poised. I don't know. I could pick a winner, but if I had to, I would probably say Sunderland probably pulls it out at the end just because the higher seeds do get the second leg at home, and I think that's a huge advantage because then you can go into a away day, and if you can slog out a draw, then you can hopefully go home and take advantage of that home field advantage and get a win there and move on. Maybe smash a 1-0 win or something like that. Sunderland are not that type to just get a 1-0 win. They're a much more attacking team. However, you never know. The playoffs are going to be so much fun. They always are. The best time of the year in the championship. We look forward to it every year. And with that, that concludes our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to another episode. We greatly appreciate it. I do want to quickly shout out some podcasts that have really supported us as of late. I want to shout out the Unplanned Approach podcast, which I mentioned earlier, from Homeless to Mansion, has also been a great friend to us. The Garage Time podcast, the Sports Nuts has also been a huge help as well, getting us some helpful tips and how to grow our show. Not to mention the countless others that have reached out and said very many encouraging things. You know who you are. We love you and appreciate you. Please go check out the podcast on all our platforms. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. We also make a lot of short content on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, so please go follow us there as well. We are on X as well. We just would greatly appreciate any reviews, liking, subscribing, dropping a comment. We always love to hear your suggestions. If you have any content you think would be great to talk about on the show, we always love hearing from you. So drop us a note, let us know what you think and how we can improve the show to make it a better listen for you. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode.